Hey everybody, today we are doing a quick factoring review. We got to understand factoring in order to do our next unit, and we haven't done factoring in quite some time, so we're going to take a day to review some of these concepts. If you have that factoring flowchart, feel free to use it. I'm not going to have it. I'm not going to supply it. It would just take too much time to go through. So if you have it, feel free to use it. Otherwise, just watch the video and we'll go from there. So we're going to go through 4 types of factoring today. First is GCF. That stands for greatest common factor. When we're factoring out a GCF, we look for the numbers first. So we're going to say 5, 15, and 25. And you ask yourself, well, what's the highest number that goes into each of those? You should say 5. Now we're going to look at each letter. X to the 7th, x squared, x to the 4th. Now we ask ourselves, what's the least amount of x's we have? And it should say x squared. And now this is our GCF, and now we're going to divide each term. So we're going to divide, I'll try to color code this. We're going to divide yellow, green, and red. We're going to divide those 3 colors by my GCF, which I underline in black. So in other words, 5x to the 7th, my yellow one, divided by 5x squared. Well, 5 divided by 5 is just 1. Then x to the 7th divided by x squared. I took out 2 x's. I have 5 left. Now I'm going to do, I'll erase this after. I'm going to do this term divided by this term. Okay, so 15 divided by 5 is plus 3. X squared divided by x squared is just 1, so those cancel out. And last but not least, we have negative 25 divided by 5 is negative 5. X to the 4th divided by x squared. I took out 2 x's. I have 2 left over, and that would be your final answer. 5x squared times x to the 5th plus 3 minus 5x squared. Okay, now you guys can try the next one. You can pause the video and take it from there if you want. Okay, we have 14 and 21. Should say the highest number that goes into those is 7. Next, I'm going to do x to the 7th, x squared, least amount of variables, x squared. Next up, y to the 3rd, y to the 5th. I can take out a y to the 3rd. In the parentheses, 14 divided by 7 is 2. X to the 7th divided by x squared, you should get x to the 5th. Y to the 3rd divided by y to the 3rd is 1, but we don't have to write the 1 because we already have something in the place of that term. Okay, next up, negative 21 divided by 7 is negative 3. My x squareds cancel out. Y to the 5th divided by y to the 3rd is y squared. Okay, next up we have factoring by grouping. And grouping, remember, the key to grouping is you should do grouping when you have 4 terms. And when we do grouping, we draw a line right down the middle. You're going to factor the GCF to the left first. So what's your GCF there? This one doesn't have a number, and this one does, so I don't have a number out front. But I do have at least an x squared, so I factor out x squared. And then what's left is x to the 3rd divided by x squared is x. Negative 2x squared divided by x squared is minus 2. Now I'm going to do the same thing, but I'm going to do it to the right. So now my GCF between 4 and 8 is plus 4 times x minus 2. Now you're probably noticing, well, Mr. Adler, these are the same things. And that's supposed to happen because now I'm only going to write that one time down here, x minus 2. I'm going to combine that and only write it one time. And now I combine x squared and plus 4. X squared plus 4. And that is your final answer. And you can write these either way. So if you wrote this as x squared plus 4 times x minus 2, that's okay as well. Either way, it's the correct answer. Okay, again, excuse me. Now, I want you to try the same thing with this one. Okay, again, if you want to pause the video, you can. Otherwise, I'm going to do it now. Factor the GCF to the left. X squared, x minus 5. That's my GCF. Do the same thing to the right. negative 3, and 15. Now, a common mistake here is just say, well, I can take out a 3, and I can take out a positive 3, and then I would get negative x plus 5, excuse me. But now, again, these two things need to be the exact same. They're not. This one is positive negative, this one's negative positive. So instead of taking out a positive 3, what I can do is I can take out a, what is going on? I can take out a negative 3 on the right side. So when I take out that negative 3, negative 3x divided by negative 3 is x. 15 divided by 3, negative 3 is negative 5. Now these two are the same things. I'm going to write those in a different color. So I only need to write those one time, x minus 5. And then here, I have x squared and minus 3. I'm smashing it all together. That is your final answer. Okay, next up we have general factoring. I have 4 examples of these. This is pretty easy. Well, it should be pretty easy. It should be a review for you. So we are looking for numbers that multiply to this and add to this. Some of you may remember doing diamond problems. That's kind of little kid math, though, so I wouldn't get in the habit of doing this. But if you want to use it as a quick refresher, that's fine. It's an 11 out of 14. So numbers that add to 11 and multiply to 14 should get 7 and 4. 7 plus 4 is 11. 7 times 4 is 28. So then in my parentheses, I just have x. It's a positive 7, and it's a positive 4. X plus 7, x plus 4. Okay, for this one, I'm going to do this one as well, and then you can try the bottom two. Okay, so now again, we're looking for numbers that multiply to negative 18 and add to negative 7. Okay, so now it's not plus plus like it was before. Now it's a minus sign here. Whenever it's minus minus, we know that 1 is going to be positive and 1 is going to be negative. So I'm going to have x and x. Now numbers that multiply to 18, and instead of saying add to negative 7, just say are different by 7. So what numbers multiply to 18 and are different by 7 or add up to negative 7? Well, 9 and 2. Is 9 minus 2 7 or is 2 minus 9 7? Well, it should be negative 9 plus 2 is negative 7. That would be your final answer. Okay, if you want to pause the video and try the next one, you can do that now. Okay, so we're looking for numbers that multiply to 36 and add to 15. Now, this one's kind of weird just because a lot of us aren't used to our, I guess, multiples that go this high. But if we did 12 times 3, that's 36, and 12 plus 3 is 15. That leaves us with x plus 3 and x plus 12. Again, these are both positive because those are both positive. Okay, last up we have x squared plus 2x minus 15. So this is plus. They got to multiply to be a negative. That tells us I'm going to have one of them is going to be x plus, one of them is going to be x minus. So what numbers multiply to 15 and add negative 15, and add up to positive 2? Well, 5 minus 3. So it's going to be a positive 5 and a negative 3. Hopefully that was somewhat of a review for you. Now, a little bit more difficult is when our a value isn't 1. So we did general factoring when we didn't have a number outside of our x squared. Now, I'm going to put a number out there. Okay, this isn't all that different, though. So in order to do this, we're still going to have 2 sets of parentheses. But what we need to do is list out numbers that multiply to get our a value. So I'm going to say 3 and 1, because 3 and 1 are the only numbers that multiply to give me 3. So I will have a 3x, and I'll have an x. This is technically 1x, but again, we don't write the 1x, so I have 3, 1, 3, 1. But like I just said, we don't write that 1 there. Now I'm going to list out numbers that multiply to give me 12. So what numbers multiply to give you 12? 1 and 12, 2 and 6, and 3 and 4. Now I'm trying to get these numbers to add to 20 in the middle here. I want to get them to add to be 20. So what I'm going to start to do is I'm going to mix and match these numbers. So I'm going to say, well, 3 times 1 is 3. 1 times 12 is 12. 3 plus 12 is 15. That isn't 20, so that's not going to work. Come on, buddy. Okay, so now let's do 3 and 12. 3 times 12 is 36, and that's way too high to get me to 20. So let's go on to the next one. Let's do 3 times 2. 3 times 2 is 6. So I did 3 times 2. Now I'm going to do 1 times 6. So I get 6 plus 6. That's 12. That's not going to cut it. Okay, let's try 3 times 6. 3 times 6 is 18. 1 times 2 is 2. Okay, so 18 plus 2, that's going to give me my 20. So now I did 3 times 6. If I want to do 3 times 6, my 6 has to go in the opposite side of this one. And my 2 has to be here, because when I would FOIL this out, 3x times 6, I would end up multiplying those. So 3x plus 2 and x plus 6. That's going to be your final answer for this problem. Okay, if you want to pause the video and try this one, you can go ahead. Otherwise, here we go. So I have numbers that multiply to 2 are only 2 and 1. So I know I'm going to have a 2x and an x. Now I need numbers that multiply to give me 6. It's technically a negative 6 right here. There's a negative sign, but for now, I'm just going to say numbers that multiply to 6, just 6 in general. So 1, 6, 2, 3. Now, I want to get this to be there's a 1 right here, remember? So I want to get these numbers to add up to be 1, or to be different by 1. So, same process. We're going to say 2 times 1 is 2. 1 times 6 is 6. Can you get 1 out of 2 and 6 from adding and subtracting? 2 minus 6, negative 4. 2 plus 6, 8. No, you can't, so that's not going to cut it. Okay, those don't work. Okay, let's move on to the next one. So now let's do 2 and 6 and 1 and 1. So we get 12 and 1. I can't make a 1 out of 12 and 1. Okay, let's move on to the next one. 2 times 2 is 4. 1 times 3 is 3. Can you make a 1 out of 4 and 3? Well, yeah, 4 minus 3. So in order to get that, I did 2 times 2. So I did 2 times 2. If I was multiplying, my 2 is going to go here. That means my 3 is going to go here. But now again, I wanted a negative 3. It was 4 minus 3 is 1. So I'm going to put a negative by my 3 and a positive by my 2. 2x minus 3 and x plus 2 should be your final answer. Okay, hope that was a review for you. If you have any questions,